Hello, this is Richard Waka, WACHA, and we're here today talking about spirits, ghosts, and possibly demons. And we're joined here today by our esteemed colleague, Donovan Watson. Donovan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I've also brought my friend Bob because Bob has a deep interest in scary stories.
Okay, all right. And so I'll be telling a few ghost stories, and then I'll be maybe asking Donovan what his opinion is about some of these stories. These are all stories that I personally have heard, and so they're basically true stories. They're true in the sense that real people who I know said these stories happened to them. And the first couple stories here kind of sound almost kind of like spiritual possession stories. So I'll just jump right into the first one. Many years ago, when I first came to Taiwan, I was studying Chinese at National Taiwan Normal University, Shifan Dashui, and I was studying there at the Mandarin Training Center, and I had a Chinese teacher tell me this story. And the story, she said, happened like maybe 1 or 2 years previously. And this Chinese teacher said that she had an Indonesian student in one of her classes, an Indonesian girl. And apparently this girl was having a difficult time adjusting to life in Taiwan. And sometimes she'd seem kind of depressed or despondent in class. And so the teacher kind of began to worry about her. And one day, the teacher said she came to class and she kind of looked almost unresponsive, kind of had a very vacant stare in her eye. And when the teacher tried to talk to her, there was no response. And then suddenly at one point in the class, this young, very actually small Indonesian girl started speaking in strange voices and strange languages that nobody knew. Of course, maybe she was speaking her own native language that she speaks in Indonesian that nobody spoke, but it wasn't her voice. The Chinese teacher said this young Indonesian student was speaking in a man's voice, in a very deep man's voice. And it sounded very authentic, like a real man speaking, but it was not at all the voice of this young girl. And then she started to kind of rant and rave and kind of become out of control, doing and saying things that just could not be ignored in a classroom. And so the Chinese teacher went and got the help of some other teachers, and I don't know whose decision this was, but somebody decided, let's put this girl in a taxi cab and take her to, I think, Qingtiangang, the Taoist temple over there on, is it Mingquan Road? And so they did that, and it took them six teachers to physically restrain and get this young girl into a taxi cab. They took her to this temple, and they have these kind of Taoist priestesses there, dressed in blue, and they waved some incense around this young girl's body and said some incantations, and the girl passed out. And when she woke up, she was herself again and had absolutely no recollection whatsoever that any of this had happened. Now, the story ends there, and so we don't know what happened. I don't know if this was an ongoing thing or if this was something that she periodically suffered from, or I don't know what happened after that. Did she go back to Indonesia? Was she just completely fine after that and just came to Chinese class totally happy? We don't know. But I thought this was a very, very compelling story. And the fact that it was told by my Chinese teacher, it's kind of hard to understand what happened. What do you think, Donovan? Do you have any response to this crazy, unusual story?
Okay, well, I don't know I've never met that particular Chinese teacher, so I don't know to what extent I would trust her story. But you know me, I don't believe in possession at all. It would be interesting for me to know if the student, the Indonesian lady, if she was religious. Because if you're religious, sometimes psychological conditions will manifest themselves or show themselves in a way, they'll outwardly take on the look as if it's something religious happening.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm not going for demonic possession.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. You know,
But that was a good story.
yeah. 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 I mean, I'm not a professional psychiatrist or anything, but, you know, I do kind of read about and listen to videos about this sort of thing. And there are certain types of schizophrenia and certain types of psychosis that where the person is literally suffering from kind of religious and spiritual delusions. And so it's possible that this girl simply was suffering from some sort of mental illness. We'll never know. But here's another one. Do you want to hear another one? This is another kind of possession story. And this one was told me by my best friend. But it happens to a friend of a friend. Okay, so keep that in mind. My friend, this particular friend, he teaches at another language center at a different university here in Taiwan, and he used to have a director, and that director of the language center retired. And after his retirement, he came back to do something, I'm not sure what, maybe clean out his office. And my friend ran into him, and my friend's ex-boss, the director of the language center, told him this story. And the story was about something that had happened to his wife. And so the director and his wife went camping one day, and they were up in the mountains somewhere in Taiwan, and it was nighttime, and as often happens, you need to get up and go to the bathroom during the night. And so his wife got up and got out of the tent, and apparently she peed under a tree. Now, apparently in Taiwan and certain Southeast Asian countries, there's kind of I don't know if we want to call it a superstition or a belief, that if you're going to pee under a tree at night, you have to first apologize to the tree spirit. And if you don't apologize to the tree spirit, then the tree spirit might haunt you or do you some sort of harm. So the wife got up, peed under a tree, did not apologize to the tree spirit, as maybe she should have. She gets back into the tent, and she starts to feel strange. And after a few minutes, she says to her husband, you know, something isn't right here. Something's wrong. I feel very, very strange. Something's very, very disturbing me. And as time went by, it got to the point where the wife insisted that they get in the car and drive home. And so during the drive home, my friend's ex-boss said his wife started speaking in very, very strange tongues. She started babbling incoherently, speaking in strange languages that were incoherent to him. And after they got back home, this condition continued. And so, being Taiwanese, they asked, again, a Taoist priestess or some sort of Buddhist person who understands these sorts of things to come and try to exorcise whatever it was that was disturbing or possessing his wife. And it was to no avail. It didn't work. And kind of in a last-ditch effort of desperation, they called the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church sent over 2 priests. And as soon as the priests got into the house, and as soon as this woman saw the priests, whatever was possessing her went completely crazy. And again, I don't know how that story ended. I don't know if the priest succeeded in getting rid of this evil spirit, or if this woman is today in a psychiatric ward somewhere in a hospital. But I thought that was really weird. It's like, why would this spirit, whatever it is, respond that way to Catholic priests, but not Taoist priestesses? And anyway, I think it's pretty weird. What do you think, Donovan, other than you don't believe this is demonic possession?
I'm speechless. The ghost story started off because she didn't apologize to a tree.
Right.
And then she peed.
Yes.
Well, no, I don't believe it was possession.
No.
Surprisingly.
Right.
Enough. We don't know what they did up there on that mountain. Maybe there were magic mushrooms.
Maybe they ate some sort of a plant, some sort of herb.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, Donovan. I know you don't believe in ghosts. Do you believe in demons?
No.
What about angels?
No, absolutely not.
Do you believe in God?
No.
Do you believe in the devil?
No.
Do you believe in life after death?
Possibly.
Do you believe in life before birth, as in reincarnation?
Possibly.
Okay. All right. Do you believe in miracles?
No.
Okay.
I believe in things that are really spectacular occurrences that some people would call miracles, but I would say there would be ways of explaining them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just interesting because I'm sometimes I watch videos or sometimes I read books, and there's this Catholic priest named Father Vincent Lampert, and he's actually a modern day exorcist. I think in the Diocese of Indiana, of all places, the most mundane, boring place in America, has some guy who is exorcising demons. Anyway, an exorcist is someone who drives out evil spirits. And, in the Christian tradition, it seems like Catholics have the most expertise or knowledge about this sort of a thing. And one day I was watching one of his videos, and he categorizes the types of demonic activity, extreme demonic activity, okay, into 4 or 5 categories. And one of them is demonic possession, where the evil spirit or whatever comes into your body and takes control of your body against your will. It uses your mouth to speak. It uses your body to do things that you normally wouldn't do. That's what we see in all the movies like The Exorcist and The Exorcism of Emily Rose. And then there's also something called demonic infestation, where he says a demon will haunt or affect a certain object or a place, which is kind of like the movie Poltergeist, where you have some sort of demonic...
Annabelle.
Okay, where you have some sort of demonic happening in a certain place that's related to a certain object. And then, this is the interesting thing, there's demonic obsession, which is the demon doesn't actually possess you, but it influences what you're thinking or feeling. Sometimes you hear voices, sometimes you see things that aren't there, and sometimes maybe you have delusions where the demonic force is affecting your intellect. And then there's demonic vexation, which is where the demons actually physically attack your body. And people that are victims of demonic vexation will have bruises and cuts and scrapes on their bodies where demons actually basically beat them up. And then the interesting thing is there's also demonic oppression. Demonic oppression is usually when someone who really believes in the truth or the reality of Jesus and God and the whole Catholic tradition is sought out by the demons as kind of a challenge. Okay, if we can win this person over, And actually, historically, is kind of looked upon as almost an honor by the person who is suffering from it. As okay, you're so holy that Satan has chosen to see if he can beat you. And then the funny thing was I was reading through my ghost stories, and they all seem to fall into one or more of these categories. You have the kind of the classic ghost stories where you hear voices or you see an apparition or you see a ghost. Well, that would be demonic obsession. You have the ghost stories where, this one ghost story, this woman is swimming laps in a pool, and she gets 1 meter. This is another true story that was told to me by one of my ex-students. She's swimming laps in a pool, and she gets 1 meter from the side of the pool, and all of a sudden she can't move. And she feels like something is trying to grab her and drag her down, and she's gasping for air. And her husband hears her gasp and walks over, and as soon as her husband approaches her, this, whatever it is, this force disappears. Well, that would fall into the category of demonic vexation. And then we have these possession stories. And then I also have stories where certain objects seem to be haunted by ghosts. And it's just kind of interesting. I'm just curious, though, Donovan, what if a student in your class, just off the top of my head, let's say you had a student in your class kind of start speaking in tongues and acting very strange, and it's obvious that they're not just goofing around, that something very serious is happening. What would be your course of action?
Well, I would just be happy that students were talking for a change, and that there was some movement in the classroom that didn't involve people looking at their smartphones. Well, see, the thing is, when you're talking about this now, it all sounds legit and legitimate. But the reason why I see it all as a bunch of hogwash is because in all of my time on the earth, and when I was young, I was very open to supernatural things. All of my time on this earth, I have never experienced anything.
Right.
So anything that is it's somebody else's story.
Right.
I have experienced nothing.
Right. It's always someone else's story, right? It's always a friend or a friend of a friend.
Richard, do you have your own ghost story?
I don't really have any. I do have a ghost story, but it would take a long time to tell, and the ending is very logical. Like there's a rational. I find out at the end there's a rational explanation.
Okay,
so that doesn't really count.
So you haven't experienced the supernatural yourself.
Not really. There is this one experience though. I can relate to you. I don't really consider it a ghost story. It's not a classic ghost story, but it's related to something called sleep paralysis. Have you ever heard of sleep paralysis? Mm-hmm. Sleep paralysis, it's actually, you can Google it. I probably, anywhere from 10 to 50% of people experience sleep paralysis at some point in their life. And basically, it's when you're in kind of a waking up or going to sleep state of mind, and you realize that you're in bed, you're fully conscious that you're lying in bed, and you wake up, but you can't move. No matter how hard you try, you cannot move, and you cannot speak, and you cannot open your eyes. And usually it lasts for like 1 or 2 minutes, and then you're able to open your eyes, and everything is fine. But when people are experiencing sleep paralysis, they often also experience all sorts of other different things that could be considered, dream-like or, something related to what it's not a fully conscious state of mind. So, for example, you can hear music, you can hear voices that aren't in the room, but they sound like they're in the room. Sometimes you feel like there's the presence of something else there. Sometimes you feel like there's something on top of you. This is a very common experience of people who have sleep paralysis, where they feel like there's some entity on top of them, putting pressure on them or trying to get inside them. This is very common. Sometimes you will see animals or weird spiritual creatures that will talk to you. Okay, and I've experienced sleep paralysis probably, I don't know, I'm guessing maybe 40 or 50 times in my life. I haven't had sleep paralysis probably for about 4 or 5 years.